Assalamualaikum and good evening everyone. So today we are back with another meeting. So here as you can see, uh, this is the translated text for today. So uh, we have each got our own paragraph to translate from Bahasa Malaysia into English. So I am the first translator. So first up, I will be talking about the strategies that and the challenges that I face when translating the given text. Okay. So first up, let's start with the strategies that I use. So um, to start, uh, I use the shift of the category with the transposition. So in Malay, many sentences start with a verb or a background phrase. So like the word berlatar belakangkan masyarakat in English, I shifted the structure to ensure that there is a clear subject and predicate, making it easier to read. Next, I use the contextual softening to directly translate makanan juga satu aspek penting into food is also an important thing. It does sound too basic, but instead I use culinary traditions, which sounds more academic and fits the theme of heritage. Next, I use the synonym selection, which is the lexical choice, which is instead of repeating the word heritage too often, I utilize the synonyms like legacy, treasure, and traditions. So it is to keep the writing engaging and more sophisticated. Next, the synthetic integration. Malay sentence can sometimes be a bit long and descriptive. So I use connectors for example, against a backdrop of. It is tooling ideas more smoothly and to ensure the paragraph flow logically. Um, okay, so that is about the strategies that I've used. For the difficulties that I face, one of them is semantic nuance. The word bangsa can mean race, nation, or people. But translating warisan budaya bangsa requires choosing between national heritage or ethnic heritage. So in this context, national was chosen to reflect the unified Malaysian identity. Okay, next is the grammatical difference. So in Malay, it does not use to be, which is the is and are, or verb tense, past, present, future, in the same way that English does. So the challenges that I face is determining the correct tenses. So in this case, the present simple for a factual, more argumentative piece. So that is one of the grammatical difference between Malay and English. Okay, next is the cultural specificity. So the terms like adat resam, it is deeply rooted in local culture, while English use traditions or customs. These words don't always capture the full spiritual or social weight of the original Malay term. Other than that, I was it was difficult avoiding the redundancy because Malay often use repetitive descriptors for emphasis like memupuk and membentuk. So in English, using too many synonyms together can look cluttered. So the difficulty lies in deciding whether to merge them or find a pair that doesn't sound redundant. That's about all the challenges that I face. Next, I give it to the next presenter, Alia Uzma.
All right, thank you, Nazimi. For my part of the translation, one of the main challenges I faced was translating the Malay idiom, which is tak lapuk di hujan, tak lekang di panas. This proverb carries deep cultural and symbolic meaning in Malay society. Literally, it refers to something that is not damaged that literally it refers to something that is not damaged by rain or heat. But the actual meaning is that something remains valuable and relevant despite time and changes. The difficulty was that English doesn't have an exact equivalent product with the same imagery and cultural feeling. At first, I considered translating it literally, such which is not hit by rain, not cracked by heat. However, I realized that although the literal meaning was preserved, it sounded unnatural in English and might confuse readers. Because of that, I used a meaning-based translation strategy by focusing more on the intended message rather than translating word by word. This helps make the sentence clearer and more understandable for English readers, while still maintaining the original idea of preserving cultural heritage over time. Besides that, cultural terms such as warisan budaya, khazanah, and tinggalan nenek moyang were also difficult because these words carry historical and emotional value in Malay culture. For example, the word khazanah does not simply mean treasure, but also refers to something precious that should be protected for future generations. Therefore, I had to carefully choose vocabulary that could preserve the cultural meaning in English. Another strategy I used was simplification. Some Malay sentences contain multiple ideas in one sentence, but English writing usually prefers clearer and more direct sentence structures. So I simplified certain sentence structures while maintaining the original meaning and message of the article. That's all for me. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I translated the next, which is started from Namuin until Sendiri. By when I was translate the paragraph, I focusing on language choices, sentence structure, and even the cultural meaning behind my translation. So the first thing is the I translate is differences in sentence structure. I explained that the sentence structure in Malay and English is very different, which is some parts were rearranged to sound so more natural in English. The first example is origin from the Malay word kepesatan teknologi semakin canggih. My translation is the rapid advancement of technology. This is because I simplify and reorganize the phrase because direct translation like the rapidness of technology becoming more sophisticated would sounds a little bit awkward in English. And the second is which is the cultural and meaning adaptation. When I translate, I explain that some words or phrases cannot be translated literally because they carry a cultural meaning. For example, is budaya asing. I translate it to foreign cultures. This means that it would keep the original meaning while sound more natural to an English reader. And the second is maintain a formal tone. I mentioned that the original text uses a formal and serious tone. So I translate it also to maintain the same tone, which is I use a formal tone. For example, words like putting pressure and more expose and influence, which can help preserve an academic formal style of the original passage. So the translation that I face when the challenges that I face when I translate is when I have to do a research cultural context, which is I need to do an additional research to conduct a better understanding cultural references and allow the translator to be more suitable and accurate translation to be chosen. And that was the hardest for me since I have to search more a little bit the information of the cultural context. Next is the strategies that I use to adopt to resolve the translation is by using um, reconstructing sentence structure. Sentence that were reorganized according to the grammar and also a writing styles of the target's language or audience can improve the readability and the flow of the sentence. That's all for me.
All right, thank you very much. Now we move on to the next translator, which is Shazwina.
Okay, for my part, in my opinion, translation process for Bahasa Malaysia text into English involves more than changing words from one language to another. The translator must preserve the meaning, tone, cultural values, and persuasive purpose of the original text. Several linguistic and cultural challenges can be identified in this translation text. The translation process involves several challenges related to translating abstract and philosophical concepts. There are some words in Malay that contains broad cultural meanings such as falsafah, kelestarian, and melestarikan. The challenge occur when English vocabulary may not fully capture the cultural and emotional depth of these terms. So the strategy that can be used to solve this issue is to use semantic approximation and also selecting the closest equivalent words. The next challenge is about preserving cultural identity in the translated text. The source text contains many culturally specific terms such as baju Melayu, kain samping, and warisan bangsa. These concepts are um, these concepts are deeply rooted in Malay culture and may not be fully understood by international readers. And it can be a challenge when there are no exact English words that match these terms in Bahasa Malaysia. So the strategy that can resolve this difficulty is the translator use borrowing and estimation. For example, the phrase kain samping was translated as side fabric. This keeps the cultural reference while giving readers a general understanding of the item. Although not perfectly accurate culturally, um, and it also translated literally, it provides more descriptive meaning for non-Malay readers. Next, I'm going to pass to the next translator.
Thank you, Shazwina. So now I'm going to talk about my translation paragraph. Um, One major challenge when I translate my paragraph is maintaining the intended meaning while ensuring natural expression in English. For example, phrases like diberi pendedahan dan kefahaman mendalam cannot be translated word for word as direct translation may sound a bit awkward. I must interpret the meaning and restructure it appropriately. Another challenge is related to sentence structure differences between Malay and English. Malay sentences are often longer and more flexible, whereas English requires clearer structure and subject-verb agreement. This creates difficulty in ensuring that the translated version remains grammatically accurate without losing the original flow. In addition, language style and formality pose as a challenge too for me. The original text uses a formal and persuasive tone, so the translation must maintain this style. However, some Malay expressions may sound repetitive or less concise when translated directly into English, requiring careful rephrasing. Furthermore, there is one more challenge in conveying cultural and contextual meaning. Terms like budaya bangsa carry deeper cultural significance, which may not have a direct equivalent in English. I must choose words that preserve both meaning and cultural value. So for the strategies that I use to overcome these challenges is I applied a meaning-based translation approach rather than direct translation. This ensures that the message remains clear and natural in English while preserving the original intent. Another strategy that I use is sentence restructuring. Long Malay sentences were broken down or reorganized into clearer English sentence patterns to improve readability and coherence. I also use appropriate lexical choices to maintain the formal tone of the text. For instance, words like memartabatkan were translated as uphold instead of simpler terms like show to reflect the intended level of formality and importance. To handle cultural elements, I use adaptation and generalization. Instead of translating terms literally, I also selected phrases that convey similar meaning in English, such as translating budaya bangsa into cultural identity. That's all from me, and I will be passing the floor to the last translator, Raja Ingrid.
All right, that will be me on the last translator. So, in the in the in my part of the translation, I applied some methods that were quite suitable for the passage that I had to translate. For example, I did in the first sentence, I did a little bit of transposition. For example, the sentence goes as penekanan perlu diberikan terhadap, and the translation would be emphasis needs to be given to words, but I replace it into schools, universities, and other institutions need to emphasize. This moves the subject, which is the institutions such as schools, universities, and other institutions, to the front instead of the translating it into the back, um, which starts with emphasis needs to be given to words, which is quite a common transposition technique to make English sentences feel more natural, to say the least. I also applied literal translation, which on the sentence penyelidikan dan pengumpulan maklumat mengenai warisan budaya bangsa juga perlu digalakkan. And I translated that sentence to research and information gathering on the nation's cultural heritage also need to be encouraged. This method that I use over here is quite effective to translate because I need to maintain the technical nature of research and information gathering, as it has like a direct equivalent in both language. So I also did a little bit of modulation. It modulation, yes, that's how it's pronounced. Because the phrase warisan budaya tempatan pasti terus kekal subur, local heritage will certainly remain fertile or lush. It's translated. Um, I translated it as local heritage will continue to flourish instead of using, literal words such as fertile. Because to say, for example, if I use local heritage will certainly remain fertile or lush, it will sound like I am trying to make the cultural heritage as in a plant. But cultural heritage is not a plant at all. So I look for other words, and flourish is much more accurate in terms of that phrase. Yes. And that is all. I applied the some of the methods that I applied to my translation. Now I will be moving on to. I will pass the floor to the head of the presenter, which is Nazimi.
All right. Thank you very much. So now that's the end of the us translators explaining our strategies and our struggles in translating the text. Now we move on to the next agenda, which is to analyze the whole translated text regarding the different aspects, which is meaning, the sentence structure, the language style and genre, the cultural context, the technical terminologies, and also the challenges. All right. So now let's start with me, the first translator. So I've analyzed the whole text from a cultural perspective. Okay, so to start, um, I see the adaptation of the idioms. For example, the Malay proverb, tak lapuk dia hujan, tak lekang dia panas. So instead of replacing it with an English equivalent like time tested, the translator chose a literal descriptive translation, which is not decay by rain and not cracked by heat. Okay, so the conceptual impact here is that this preserves the Malay imagery of natural elements, which is the sun and rain, while also maintaining the poetic rhythm of the original text. It ensures that the cultural flavor isn't lost by the modernization. And also the terminology and the conceptual nuance. The translation accurately captures the specific Malay cultural concepts that lack the direct one-to-one English equivalent. So for example, the philosophy of attire. In discussing the baju Melayu, the translator correctly identifies that elements like kain samping, buttons, and pockets are not just fashion choice, but they also carry special philosophy. And the heritage as khazanah. The word khazanah is translated as treasured heritage or treasure. So this elevates the status of culture from mere history to something of immense values that must be guarded. Next is the Next is the contextual localization, the Malay versus English nuance. The translator makes smart choices in word selection to match the cultural gravity of the subject. The modernization versus tradition is that the text translate arus pemodenan mencabar as challenging modernization times. This captures that the Malay sentiment that modern progress is often viewed as current or tight as risk washing away traditional roots. And the concepts of pewaris translating generasi muda adalah pewaris as the younger generation is the inheritor. It reinforced the cultural expectation of filial and nationality of a core value in Malaysian society. Next is addressing modern challenges. The translation effectively conveys the tension between local identity and global influence. Foreign influence, which is the translator used the phrase rapid penetration of foreign cultures for kepelbagaian budaya luar yang pantas meresap. Okay, so the choice of penetration accurately reflects that the original text tone of concern regarding how easily external influence can permeate local society. The contemporary appeal by translating budaya luar lebih menarik serta contemporary as foreign culture is said to be more interesting and contemporary. Okay, so the translator maintains the neutral yet cautious observation of the author regarding the shifting youth preference. That's all from me. So I will pass it to the next analyzer, which is Alia Uzma.
Alright, okay, thank you, Nazimi. So next, I will be give some explanation on the meaning aspects, basically the meaning of the article. So for the meaning aspect, this article mainly discusses the importance of preserving and defending Malaysia's cultural heritage among the younger generation. The writer explains that cultural heritage is very important because it forms the identity and uniqueness of a nation. In Malaysia, we live in a multicultural society with different races, language, traditions, music, clothing, and customs. All these elements represent our national identity and um, should be protected for future generations. The article also emphasizes that cultural heritage is not only about the traditional dances or historical artifacts, but it also includes food, music, clothing, language, customs, and values inherited from our ancestors. These cultural elements reflect the history and philosophy of our society. Besides that, the writer wants to raise awareness about the challenges faced by local culture today. One of the main issues mentioned in the article is the influence of foreign culture and modern technology. Due to globalization and social media, young people are becoming more exposed to Western fashion, foreign music, and outside cultural influences. As a result, traditional culture is slowly losing attention among the younger generation. For example, the article mentions that foreign music is becoming more popular in traditional local music. It also states that many young people are more influenced by Western fashion compared to traditional clothing such as baju Melayu. The writer believes this condition is growing because younger generations may slowly forget the meaning and philosophy behind their own culture. Another important meaning in this article is responsibility. The writer stated that preserving cultural heritage is not only the government's duty, but also the responsibility of every citizen, especially young people. The younger generation is described as the future inheritor of the nation's cultural heritage. The article also uses the Malay proverb tak lapuk di hujan, tak lekang di panas, which means something remains valuable despite time and challenges. This proverb symbolizes the hope that Malaysian cultural heritage will continue to survive even in the modern era. In addition, the article highlights the importance of education in preserving culture. Schools, universities, and other institutions should expose students to cultural knowledge so that they can have better understanding um, about their roots and identity. Overall, the meaning of this article is to encourage society, especially young people, to appreciate, preserve, and continue the nation's cultural heritage so that it will not disappear in the future. The article also reminds readers that modernization should not cause us to forget our traditions and identity as Malaysians. That's all for me. Our person representative, Diana.
I will talk about I identify the differences in sentence structure. The first is uh, the differences in Malay to English is the expansion from simple Malay sentence into a longer English clauses. Malay sentences are often shorter and more compact, while English translation expands them into more grammatically complete structure. For example, Malay sentence is warisan budaya bangsa adalah elemen terpenting dalam memupuk dan membentuk identiti serta keunikan sesebuah negara. And the translation is national cultural heritage is a vital element in nurturing and shaping the identity and uniqueness of a country. There is a structural differences because Malay structure is more direct, which is subject plus predicate plus purpose, while English adds an article a and a preposition in, and more into a fuller nouns phrases. So the English sentences becomes more longer and more formal because English requires a clearer grammatical relationship. Next is the reordering of information. English English translation often rearrange sentence elements for natural readability, like structural differences, which is the example is Malay berlatar belakangkan masyarakat berbilang kaum dan pelbagai budaya dan bahasa. And the English translate is against a backdrop of a multiracial society with diverse cultures and language. There is a structural differences where Malay begins with a participle-like phrase, while English restructure it into a prepositional phrase. This could improve the fluency in English. And next, last but not least, is the normalization in English. English frequently change verbs into a nouns and creates more academic tone. For example, Malay memelihara serta mengekalkan. However, in English, the responsibility to preserve and maintain. The structure differences is Malay use a verb focus structure while English converts the action into a noun phrases. The responsibility. This could create a more into a formal written style. Um, yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next
Okay.
is the
Um,
to the next analyzer, which is Shazwina.
okay. I'm gonna explain about the language style and genre. The English and Bahasa Malaysia texts differ significantly because of cultural expectations, linguistic structure, and also translation choices. For the language style differences, Bahasa Malaysia text is more emotionally expressive, while the English version is more direct and informational. For example, the phrase tak lapuk dek hujan tak lekang dek panas. This is a traditional Malay proverb that carries poetic and cultural meaning. It emphasizes endurance and timelessness. In English translation, the text came out as not decayed by rain, not cracked by heat. This version translates the meaning literally, but it loses the poetic beauty and cultural resonance found in the Malay expression. This shows that Bahasa Malaysia uses more figurative and idiomatic language more naturally, while English prioritizes clarity and accessibility over cultural nuance. Next, the use of persuasive language in Bahasa Malaysia. In Bahasa Malaysia text uses stronger collective and patriotic rhetoric, such as the phrase Hazanah Negara, warisan bangsa and bahu semua rakyat. These phrases create emotional attachment and communal responsibility. In English version, it softens this effect as shown in the phrase country's treasured heritage and all citizens. The English style sounds more academic and neutral, where while the Malay style sounds more emotionally persuasive and nationalistic. For the genre, although both texts belong to the same genre, the way the genre is realized differs in reader appeal. As in Bahasa Malaysia text, it presents emotional and cultural identity, while in English version, it includes logical understanding. For persuasive technique, um, Bahasa Malaysia texts are more collective responsibility, while English texts are more towards rational arguments. That's all for me. I'm gonna pass the floor to the next presenter.
Thank you, Shazwina. So right now, I want to talk about the strategies and challenges that the first phase that we already do. So I am going to touch on several paragraph only. So for the first paragraph, I analysis that in translating this paragraph is to preserving the formal and patriotic tone of the original Malay text. The phrase memupuk dan membentuk identiti serta keunikan sesebuah negara carries a strong sense of national identity and cultural pride, which may sound unnatural if translated word for word into English. Another challenge is translating the phrase menjadi kebanggaan untuk generasi akan datang, as it contains emotional and implicit meaning that requires careful interpretation to maintain the intended impact. In addition, the Malay sentence structure is longer and more complex compared to standard English academic writing. So to address these challenges, the translator applied strategies such as modulation, transposition, and restructuring. For example, the phrase was translated into nurturing and shaping the identity and uniqueness of a country to create a more natural expression in English while preserving the original meaning. The translator also rendered menjadi kebanggaan untuk generasi akan datang as serves as a source of pride for future generations, which uses modulation to convey the emotional meaning more effectively. Furthermore, sentence restructuring was used to improve clarity and fluency for English readers. These strategies successfully maintain the original message, formal tone, and cultural significance of the source text. So next, I want to talk about the third paragraph. The third paragraph highlights several translation challenges related to repetition, tone, and the transfer of social concerns from Malay into English. One challenge is translating the phrase kepesatan teknologi semakin canggih because the wording contains overlapping ideas about technological progress and advancement. If translated too literally, the sentence may sound repetitive in English. Another challenge is the phrase pantas meresap dalam masyarakat, which metaphorically describes how foreign cultures quickly influence society. In addition, the original Malay text carries a concern and cautionary tone regarding the influence of foreign culture on younger generations, which must be preserved carefully in the translation. To address these challenges, the translator applied strategies such as modulation, paraphrasing, and restructuring. For instance, kepesatan teknologi semakin canggih was translated as the rapid advancement of technology to produce a clearer and more natural expression in English while avoiding redundancy. The translator also paraphrased pantas meresap dalam masyarakat into rapid penetration of foreign cultures into our society to maintain the original meaning in a more formal academic style. Furthermore, sentence restructuring was used to improve fluency and readability, especially in explaining the influence of foreign music on younger generation. These strategies successfully preserve the information and cautionary message of the source text while ensuring the translation remains understandable and natural for English readers. So, for the last paragraph, the sixth paragraph, one of the main challenges in translating and understanding this paragraph is the need to express extract academic concepts such as pemodenan mencabar and kelangsungan identiti nasional, in a clear and natural English form without losing meaning. This expression carry deep ideological meaning that cannot be translated literally. So the translator, to overcome this challenge, do a meaning-based translation approach was used instead of literal translation. This is to ensure that ideas such as cultural continuity and national identity are clearly conveyed in natural English. So that's all for me, and I will be passing on the floor to the last but not least analyzer, Raja Imran.
All right, thank you. Now I will be analyzing the the translation in terms of terminology. Now, the the terminology focuses on this analysis focuses on key terms regarding the preservations of the national cultural heritage. Now, some of the core terminology analysis that I have studied, so sorry, is that the source term in Malay, which is Warisan Budaya Bangsa, and the target the translated version of that is national cultural heritage, and it refers to the collective elements such as arts, music, history that are form of country's identity. The translator uses a direct equivalent that maintains the formal tone of the text. The next one is tak lapuk dek hujan, tak lekang dia panas, which the translated version will be not decayed by rain, not cracked by heat. This is the expression is a Malay proverb signifying something that remains unchanged over time. Because the translation is literal, it preserved the imagery of the original idiom. Pardon me, it is idiom, not an expression. Now, next terminology, which is pewaris, in English means inheritor. It is used to describe the younger generation's role in maintaining cultural relevance. Relevance. Inheritor effectively captures the sense of duty and succession implied in the source text. Last but not least, wait, hold on. There's more actually. There's three more. Baju Melayu, which is the original word, is Baju Melayu, and the translate version could be Malay dress because it is a specific cultural attire for the Malays. Malay dress is used to the translated version of Baju Melayu because it is a loan word to maintain a specific cultural identity. Though I think it's best for the translator use Baju Melayu instead of Malay dress to keep its cultural significance, to say the least. Kain samping is also translated into side fabric, and it refers kain samping actually refers to the sarong like cloth, but it was like a mini version of sarong, typically worn by men. The translation side fabric is quite descriptive approach to help like non-Malay or non-native speakers uh, to understand what is the function of the cloth itself. Instead of kain samping, side fabric would be accurate enough because if you wear the baju Melayu, the Malay dress to say, the top and the bottom would just make it as a whole. But kain samping is actually a side fabric that complement the whole outfit itself. Now, some of the observations that I made is that, as I said before, the literal translation of the idiom, which is tak lapuk di hujan, tak lekang dia panas. And it's literally translated one by one. Now, the cultural specific of the translated is that, for example, the term kain samping, as I said before, and baju Melayu carry a deep philosophical cultural meaning mentioned in the text. The translation chooses descriptive English terms, which is side fabric, rather than retaining the original Malay terminology, which make the translated text more accessible, but loses some of its specific cultural nomenclature. So for that is all for me. I will be passing the floor to the head presenter. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. So that's the end of the analyzing part of our meeting today. Now we move on to the next agenda, which is a Q&A session. Okay, so from our meeting here, from the translation, the strategies, and the translated text, and also from all the aspects that we have analyzed, I've come up with a few questions. So let's start with the first question. You can any of you can volunteer to answer it. So the first question is the proverb tak lapuk dek hujan, tak lekang dek panas translated literally as not decayed by rain, not cracked by heat? Is it is this the literal approach better than using the English equivalent, like using stood the test of time?
So, can you answer that question? Okay. Because it's related to the translation work that I did. So the literal translation is effective here because it preserves the nature-based imagery inherent in Malay culture, while stood the test of time, conveys the meaning. The literal version maintains the appropriate scope of the original text. Okay, that's all for me.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. That is correct. Uh, Move on to the next question. The word falsafah is used repeatedly regarding traditional clothing. So, is philosophy the most accurate English word for this? Or does it sound too academic?
I will try to answer. In my opinion, the word philosophy is the most appropriate choices because it reflects the elements like buttons and pockets on a baju Melayu that carry a deep symbolic meaning rather than just being aesthetic choices. And also, it elevates the subject from fashion to the cultural wisdom. That's my opinion.
All right, that's correct. Now we move on to the next question. The question is, the translator that used the word netizens to translate semua rakyat, does this modernization change the artist's original intent?
I will answer the question. In my opinion, using the word netizens is a modern adaptation that acknowledges the digital landscape where younger generations interact. However, it slightly narrows the scope of um, semua rakyat, all citizens, which originally implies a collective national duty for every person, regardless of their online presence. That's all from me.
All right, thank you very much. It's also correct. Now, the next question, which is the word khazanah is translated as treasure and treasure heritage. Does this capture the essence of the Malay word?
I want to answer it. In my opinion, yes, Khazana implies a valuable legacy or storehouse of wealth. By using treasured heritage, the translator successfully conveys that culture is a precious asset that must be guarded against being forgotten or lost. So that's all my opinion.
All right, I see. Thank you very much for the opinion. That's also what I thought too. Next, the last question is, how does the translation handle the word kelestarian?
So I will be answer this one. Let me give us some time. Okay, so it is translated as preservation, while often linked to sustainability, the translator correctly identifies that in this context, it refers to the active effort to keep the local keep the wait hold on what was the thing, keep the local traditions strong and relevant in the face of rapid technological advancement. So that is my opinion so far.
All right, I said it. Yes. So that will be the end of our meeting for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and thank you for participating. Thank you very much. Let's end the meeting today. Assalamualaikum.